I'm going to open things up. Thank you so much. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining our National Cybersecurity webinar. My name's Colleen Causey. I'm a National Account Manager with ANM. I've had a relationship with the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association for the past 11 years now. ANM has a national contract in place with the group purchasing organization of the National Association. Within our agreement, we represent 28 different manufacturers, major manufacturers such as our guest speaker today, Illumio. We also offer wonderful incentives to the Blue Cross plans who purchase under that agreement. So you may be wondering, who is ANM? I've never heard of ANM before. How do they have a national agreement with Blue Cross? Well, the group purchasing organization of Blue Cross is responsible for meeting with the different Blue Cross plans to find out what their vendor needs are. And in traveling across the country and meeting with various Blue Cross plans, some of the feedback that they received is that their current partners were complacent or not strategic anymore or taking their business for granted. Well, that offered ANM a wonderful opportunity. We offer speed, flexibility, and support. And our support for our customers is evidenced by our Net Promoter Score of 97. Our customers love doing business with us. But even more importantly, we're very proud of our 6 engineer to 1 sales rep ratio. What this allows us to do is to get strategic with your technology and uncover the right solutions. But don't take my word for it. I am very proud and honored to introduce my colleague, Chris Hammer, who supports the Blue Cross plans across the nation in ANM's cybersecurity organization. So Chris, take it away.
Thank you, Colleen, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Hammer. I'm a cybersecurity architect with ANM. Looking forward to the conversation today. I know that it's top of mind for a lot of folks that are on the call and in the industry in general. So a little more about ANM and where ANM focuses. As Colleen mentioned, we've got a 6-to-1 engineer to sales ratio, which really blends into the DNA of who ANM is, and that's an engineering-led organization. ANM has really found a sweet spot in helping our clients navigate the complex technology landscape that exists, particularly around the topics that we're discussing today, like zero trust. So working with our clients to educate not only what is zero trust, number one, but number two, how should zero trust be applied to your organization, knowing that each organization is going to be different. There's a lot of technical jargon. There's a lot of things in the market out there about complex topics like zero trust. So ANM really shines in being able to help our clients navigate that ecosystem and ultimately align solutions to you. We do that not only from a pre-sales perspective, but also through delivery capabilities within our organizations. So we take great pride in the engineering-led approach and the success that we see in working with our clients. To that end, and getting into the topic today, I'm delighted to introduce John Kindervag. He's the Chief Evangelist for Illumio. He's been in the industry for over 25 years, has several industry leadership and thought process credits to his name. He is one of the founding members of creating the zero trust model for cybersecurity, and I know he's going to bring a tremendous amount of knowledge and information to this topic today. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to John, and thank you again for everyone for attending today.
Hey, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. And it's great to be here talking to y'all. Again, I'm John Kindervag with Illumio, Chief Evangelist over here. I'm going to be talking to you about how you can actually win the cyber war using zero trust. We're all in a cyber war. That's what you have to understand. We all live in the same bad neighborhood. We're all connected to the same malicious actors via the internet. So there's no place to hide. And if you're in this industry, you are a cyber warrior. There's only 3 adversarial businesses in the world: the military, law enforcement, and cybersecurity. So the first thing you need to know is that you're a cyber warrior, and that's your job. And so now, how do you win that cyber war? Because this is a cyber war that's completely different than all kinetic wars, because it brings people in as combatants unwittingly. So you are with a health insurance company, but you may well be fighting a nation state. And there's an asymmetry there that's not fair, but hey, no one said it was going to be fair. So we're going to teach you how to win that war. So I'm actually the creator of Zero Trust, actually the sole creator of Zero Trust. I created it when I was at Forrester Research. I was there for 8.5 years as a vice president and principal analyst, and wrote the first report in September of 2010. So we're coming up on the 15th anniversary of the first published stuff around Zero Trust. I was doing about 2 years of primary research, building prototype networks and stuff before I ever wrote this. And I've been doing this longer than anybody else in the world. I've done more of it than anyone else in the world. And that actually means that I travel the world all the time. So I just came back from Helsinki, where I was speaking to a NATO cybersecurity conference. Next week, I'm in London speaking at a conference at the House of Lords. So I get to go back and forth across the world talking about this. And it's quite an honor, quite humbling, because when I first came out with this, people thought I was crazy and said it would never go anywhere. But now it's a global movement. Now, what really changed to make this a global movement is in 2021, President Biden issued an executive order on improving the nation's cybersecurity. We just call this, people just generally call this the Zero Trust EO because it changed the game. And in this order, the Biden administration said the federal government must adopt security best practices and advance towards a Zero Trust architecture. There's a whole backstory on why this happened, but we won't go into that today. But then I got appointed functionally by President Biden to sit on his NSTAC subcommittee on Zero Trust. NSTAC is the National Security Telecommunications Advisory Council for the president. It's been around for decades. And there was one on Zero Trust. I got to be a member of that committee, a briefer or a presenter, and one of the co-authors of the NSTAC report on Zero Trust and trusted identity management. This is what we consider to be authoritative on what Zero Trust is. And that led to my involvement in the Cloud Security Alliance. If any of you are members, I sort of lead the Zero Trust efforts and helped create the Zero Trust curriculum and the Zero Trust certification. So I do a lot of work just promoting Zero Trust and helping people understand what it actually is. So what is it? I'm going to give you a precise and very quick definition of Zero Trust. Zero Trust is first and foremost a strategy. It's not a product. You can't buy it. You do it. It's a strategic thing. It was designed to strategically resonate to the highest levels of any organization, yet be tactically implementable using commercially available off-the-shelf technology. And the strategy and the tactics are decoupled from each other. I realize that strategies won't change, but the products will get better and better over time. So there's sort of a different way that I talk about this when I'm talking to, say, a 3-star general or a CEO versus a network engineer or a security architect. But it resonates to both places. And this strategy is designed to do 2 things. One is to stop data breaches. A data breach is defined by legal and regulatory entities like GDPR, CCPA, PCI, as any time data that is sensitive or regulated is exfiltrated from our networks or systems into the hands of a malicious actor. And so that's the most important thing, because the only thing that IT can do to get the CEO of a company fired is to allow a data breach. And if there's a data breach in an organization, it was allowed by the company. Probably unwittingly, but there was a policy in place that allowed the bad thing to happen. I like to say that all bad things happen inside of an allow rule. So you're not a victim of cyber security attacks. You're at best an unwitting co-participant because you don't have the right security in place. And the other thing it does is it makes other cybersecurity attacks unsuccessful. So there's 2 types of attacks. There's successful ones and unsuccessful ones. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that the best ones are the ones that are unsuccessful. We can't ever stop an attack from starting, or else we'd have to be the attacker. And so all we can do is allow it, which most people do, or stop it. And Zero Trust is the way we stop it. And we do that by eliminating trust from digital systems. trust is a very complex thing. We don't have time to go into what trust actually is, but trust is a human emotion, and it has no place in digital systems. It does not belong in digital systems. So what we're trying to do is get rid of trusted networks, trusted systems, all that kind of stuff. So some quick zero trust misconceptions. First, zero trust makes making a system trusted. No, we're trying to eliminate trust. Trust is always a bad thing. It was the thing that I was fighting against early on in my career, the idea that there were trusted and untrusted parts of a network. That was silly. And so I said we need to eliminate trust, and all packets need to have the same trust level, which is 0. So this is false. And then zero trust is all about identity. No, zero trust consumes identity in policy. This is something that product manufacturers have taken and pushed. If you're in the identity space, you're trying to convince people that identity is the new perimeter. No, it's not. It's a silly concept, but it sells identity products. And so I can understand why they did it, but this is false. And then there are zero trust products you can buy. No, there are products that work well in zero trust environments based upon what you're trying to protect. And then finally, zero trust is complicated. I got a call from a well-known cybersecurity person, very well-known. He said, why, when I read everything else people are writing about this, it's so complicated, I don't understand it. And I said, I don't know, you tell me. And he said, I think it's because people think if they make it sound complicated, they sound smarter. I said, well, I have to make it simple because I'm not smart enough to make it complicated. I have to make it so that I can do it. And so this is false. It's not complicated. It's phenomenally easy. So the best visual metaphor I can give you is to show you how the U.S. Secret Service protects the President of the United States. And this is an image from President Barack Obama's 2009 inauguration parade, January 20th of 2009, for perspective. But this is a great image. People really start to understand what zero trust is when I show it. So there's 3 things that the Secret Service knows about the President of the United States that we don't know about the data or assets that we're supposed to protect. First of all, they know who the president is. They don't do presidential discovery projects. They don't scan for the president, do they? Second, they know where the president is at all times. And third, they know who should have access to the president at any given time. These are the 3 fundamental questions you ask when you're protecting anything: data, assets, or the president of the United States. Now, when we look at this image, we can see that, yeah, okay, they did have a perimeter. People like to point that out. But then I show them, look at this uniformed Secret Service agent. He has his hands in his pockets, a warm woolly hat on. Probably the coats look like they're all zipped up. Why? Because they're not doing any real protection. They're there to knock down the low-hanging fruit, to intimidate. It's what's known as security theater. It's not really useful, but it looks useful. No, the real protection is done at the bottom of the screen, at what we call the protect surface. This is the fundamental tactical concept of zero trust. You must understand what a protect surface is to understand what zero trust is. Anybody who talks about zero trust without talking about protect surfaces does not understand zero trust, and you should discount what they are saying immediately. So the protect surface answers the question, what are we trying to protect? You have to know that question. And so we can't manage the attack surface. That's what people are selling you right now. Oh, attack surface management products. No, the attack surface is like the universe. It's constantly expanding. There's no way to control the attack surface. But we can invert the problem, shrink it down orders of magnitude to something very small and easily known called a protect surface. So on this day, there are 4 individuals in the protect surface: the president, his wife, and his 2 children. If at the end of the day, those 4 people are left alive, the Secret Service has done their job. Now, the Secret Service does something really, really amazing. I want you to look very closely. Look at where they put their controls. They put their controls adjacent to the protect surface to define a microperimeter and policy to determine who's going to be allowed to come in and out of that protect surface. We don't do that in cybersecurity. Our controls are on either the perimeter or the endpoint, which are as far away as we can possibly put them from the thing we're trying to protect. And this creates a secondary attack surface we call the internal network, which is why we have the concept of dwell time. How long has an attacker been in our system before we ever noticed? The answer is always days, weeks, months, years, sometimes even decades. Companies have gone out of business because they never knew that they were hacked out of business because the attackers were inside there and no one knew it. And so zero trust eliminates dwell time because it has a micro perimeter around the thing that actually matters, the protect surface. And so now we can control policy. And policy is where everything comes down. Policy is binary. All you can do is allow or deny. That's it. If anybody tells you something different, again, they're not telling you the truth. So at this moment, there's a deny all policy, and then they've got an allow rule that allows the two people driving the beast, which is not the protect surface itself. It is just transport. The people, in this case, are the protect surface. And so there's only two individuals who can transit outbound. And then there's nobody who can come inbound. Look at the Secret Service agent at the bottom of the screen. He doesn't have gloves on. He doesn't have a hat on. His coat isn't zipped up. Now, it could be because it's warmer down at the bottom of the screen than it is at the top of the screen, but I don't think that's true. I think that person is ready to actually do real protection. So if someone tries to come in, there is a deny rule that they're going to enforce very violently. And having been around some Secret Service details, I know that at this moment, they don't have a sense of humor. They're fun people to hang around with after something is over, but not during what's called an executive protection event. And so now the Secret Service doesn't stop there. They continuously monitor and update in real time. So they look out in the crowd, they see this guy in white, he looks suspicious. We're going to tell our command and control to have everybody keep an eye out on him, right? So let's keep an eye out there. That's a little bit of threat intelligence. But they also sometimes get messages to change the allow rule. So dynamically, they can change policy to allow somebody to come in. And so this is a zero trust model of executive protection. It's how you protect anything, data, assets, or the president of the United States. And so this is the key thing to understand. This is how you actually do real protection. So there's a 5-step methodology that guides your deployment journey. This is why it's so easy. If you do it this way, it's super easy. If you do it any other way, it's going to be incredibly difficult. But most people are taking old school 20th century methodologies and applying it to what they think zero trust is. And without understanding the fundamental concepts, they get it all wrong and make it much more complex. So all you need to know are these 5 steps. The first step is to define your protect surface. What do I need to protect? And the answer is called a DAS element. You can read about that in the NSTAC report, for example. DAS is a common term. I created it to help people understand what should go into a protect surface. It stands for data that is sensitive, applications that use sensitive data, assets that are sensitive, and services that are sensitive. Think about DNS, DHCP, Active Directory, Network Time Protocol, things that your network doesn't run without, but hey, most people don't do any real protection on that other than deploying it, setting it up. And so you take a single DAS element and put it into a single protect surface and build out your zero trust environment one protect surface at a time. And now the second thing you're going to do is map the transaction flows. We asked the question, how does the system work together as a system? And I learned this the hard way. One of the very first things we were doing, somebody in the middle of the night one day took out a server because it was old. It was old, we're going to take it out. And it brought down the system that we were working on. And of course, they pointed the finger, well, it's all zero trust fault. And we were trying to say, well, no, it's your fault because you didn't even know that taking out the server was going to bring down 3,000 restaurants worldwide, right? And so you have to understand how the system works. And most people don't, because there's nobody in your company who was around when that system was put in place. I mean, and that's not a knack against anybody. It's just really hard to do. That's why I came to Illumio, because the transaction flow mapping is superior. And it helped me solve step 2 problems, which were the hardest ones to solve. And then we do step 3, architect the environment. Everybody wants a zero trust reference architecture. I can't give you that because every zero trust environment is tailor-made for the protect surface. So you must understand the protect surface to understand what to architect it. You can't start with the product, which everybody wants to do, especially the vendors. And I work for a vendor, right? But I work for an enlightened vendor who brought me on to tell the story truthfully and not spun to sell a product, right? And then step 4 is policy. We define policy very clearly in Zero Trust. It's easy to do because this is where everything comes together. Everything is about policy. I just need controls to enforce the policy. And then finally, we monitor and maintain. That's where we take all the telemetry generated by the system and re-inject it back into the system to create what's known as an anti-fragile system. I got the vocabulary of this from the writer Nissim Nicholas Taleb, who wrote a book called Anti-Fragile. It's about systems that benefit from instability and from attack. So he gives the example of the human body. You know, it's Christmas season. You eat too much turkey and Christmas cookies. You put on a few pounds. How do you get rid of them? Well, you restrict calories. That's a stressor. You work out. You bike or swim or whatever you do. Those things, those stressors actually make your body stronger because your body adapts and gets stronger because it is an anti-fragile system. And I have turned the network into an anti-fragile system. It's recursive. It constantly does this over and over again. You don't finish, you build, and it's like the human body. I mean, you're never finished breathing, right? The day you're finished breathing is the day you die. The day you finish Zero Trust is the day your organization dies. Oh, that's not supposed to be there, sorry. So now, Zero Trust defines the proper way to do network segmentation. And so everything is about segmenting your network. You have to segment away the protect surface. So we have to understand what we're actually protecting. So by understanding your protect surface, we know why we're segmenting. I was in London a while back, and the CIO of a major company said, a big financial services company, he said, I see why our £2 million 3-year segmentation project failed. It failed because we didn't know why we were doing it. And so now we understand that we're doing this for a point of sale system, for cardholder data environment. This is that's what CDE stands for. And so now if we know why we're doing it, we can do a better job of building it. So we put a segmentation gateway in, a gateway that segments networks based upon DAS element. And that's what our technology functions as, segmentation gateways, and connected to the protect surface to define everything inside of a micro perimeter. So now we know that DAS element is PCI data. That's credit card data inside of our cardholder data environment there. And so by understanding that micro perimeter, now we can know how we're enforcing that segmentation. And once we do that once, we can then do it over and over again, and we add centralized management so that it becomes easy to manage. You can't do this individually. You have to do it centrally. And now we just build it out one protect surface at a time. This makes Zero Trust 3 things. It makes it incremental. We're doing it one at a time. It makes it iterative. We're doing it one after another, and it makes it non-disruptive. The most you can screw up is one protect surface. So you don't have to be afraid of Zero Trust. Now, at Illumio, the reason I joined Illumio, and I only join companies that will advance the Zero Trust narrative. So I do these things because they're part of my mission, and I can help people achieve this. This is my purpose in life, is to help people understand Zero Trust and help them understand how they can win that cyber war, because we can do it. If we all did this, attackers would find it amazingly difficult to be successful. So if we see, this is one of our dashboards at Illumio for our Zero Trust segmentation product. And we can see here the steps. So I just mapped them out for you. Define the protect surface. Automatically, by installing our technology, it builds these maps, these graphs they're called. And we can see this is a point of sale terminal. We can see there's a database there. So clearly that must be where our PCI data is, and we've automatically defined a DAS element. Second thing, we've got the mapping in, step 2. So we see how everything is connected. And then step 3, architecture, because we've actually had to deploy the application in a learning mode. It's not enforcing anything, it's just learning. Now we're starting to build the foundation for the architecture. So the act of defining and mapping gives us the architecture. So very, very simple. And then step 4, policy, we can see these lines here. Some of them, it's probably hard to see on your screen, but it's hard to see on mine too. But when you're looking at the map and you can zoom in and out, but you'll see that there are green lines where there's an allow rule. There are red lines where traffic is trying to get to it, and there's a deny in there, so it's being stopped. And then there's amber or yellow lines, which means, hey, there's some traffic moving across there that nobody has looked at. We need to take a look at those, right? So we're showing you the things that you haven't really defined a specific policy for, so that you know where those potential problems are. And so my mission is to change the zero trust narrative, move it from identity to segmentation as the key technology focus. The second report I ever wrote back in November of 2010, called Build Security into Your Network's DNA, the Zero Trust Network Architecture, I said this: all modern networks must be segmented by default. Therefore, new ways of segmenting networks must be created. And this was 3 years before Illumio was even created, right? So I could see that this is the way that things had to be. It just takes, when you have the viewpoint of an analyst and you're looking at things across a global scale, you get a different worldview than people who are just in a particular company or a particular vendor space. And so you can see a little bit in the future. It's not like I'm Nostradamus, but it was easy to see where it had to go based upon the threats, the attacks, and what was happening in the world. And you know who agrees with me? The NSA. So last year they came out with this information sheet about advancing zero trust maturity through the network and environmental pillar, where they came out and talked in detail about the importance of this network pillar, which was being overlooked. Everybody was focusing on identity, and this was really their shot across the bow as a result of things like Colonial Pipeline and other things, to say, no, look at the network. That's where everything actually happens. And so they were pointing out the importance of data to flow mapping, step 2, and then macro micro segmentation, which are just different sizes of protect surfaces, really, when you get down to it. And that's step 3. And then software-defined networking. So the first 3 Illumio does by default. The fourth one, we partner with companies. So I want to tell you a little story. Last April, I was in Taiwan, and I got woken up at 2:21 in the morning by the president of Taiwan, and she very nicely told me on my iPhone that she felt an earthquake. I should keep calm and seek cover nearby. Now, I looked around my hotel room. I was on the 15th floor of a high-rise in Taipei, and I realized there was no place to go. But I also realized that buildings in Taipei, for the most part, modern ones, were built to withstand earthquakes. This is Taipei 101, a very famous building that has a dampening pendulum that swings with the earthquake. I was not in this building, but this is just a famous example of how you can build a building that's earthquake resistant. And I just wrote an article about this on our Zero Trust Hub that I think the team can link to for you, about how cybersecurity has to be the structural engineering of the network and of the digital transformation. And so I looked around my room and I said, while it's shaking, there's no place to go. So instead of taking cover, I just went back under the covers and went to sleep and used the swaying motion of the building to kind of rock me back to sleep, because it made me realize that segmentation is the foundation of zero trust, right? You have to have a strong foundation, and that's what segmentation does for you. It gives you that foundation, and then you can build all the pillars on top of it that you want to. So I want to now shift a little bit to the importance of automation and orchestration. This is an image of the Bomba. This is the analog computer built by Alan Turing to defeat the Nazi Enigma code. And in the movie, The Imitation Game, you need to watch that sometime with your cybersecurity practitioner hat on. And everybody's trying to get rid of this. They want to tear it down. It's wasting money. We want more of the 3 Ps of crypto analysis of the day: paper, pencils, people. And Alan Turing said something that was so profound, it just rocked me literally in my seat. I just went back in my seat in the theater. He said, what if only a machine can defeat another machine? You see, that's where we are in cybersecurity. Every once everybody wants to do things manually, but the only way we're going to defeat this enemy and win the cyber war is if we build a machine that defeats the machine. And so every place I've been, that's what we're doing. We're building that machine. That's why anti-fragility is so important. And I already mentioned it earlier, but this step 5 is part of that machine. So if I take that anti-fragility concept and apply it to the products that we're building, we're using AI and telemetry to create what are known as insights. And those insights give you that ability to start becoming anti-fragile. So you can click on particular buttons or these big squares, and you can do things like find out the accounts that are sending traffic to malicious IP addresses. That's hard to do normally, but we've made it easy. One click, you're going to find it out, and you can start to get insight into those particular flows, and you can immediately mitigate that in real time if you wanted to, if you chose to, and you should choose to do that. You should stop anything that looks bad, even if oh, you know, what if it stopped a good thing? Who cares? Because the bad thing has so much greater consequences than stopping a good thing. Someone is inconvenienced for a short period of time if you stop a good thing. But if you don't stop a bad thing, it could lead to the destruction of your entire organization. And so that's what we're trying to do here, is make this, we're beginning that process, leveraging artificial intelligence capabilities, large language models, to give you insights into what you need to do. And then the next step is to automate this, and so that it does it automatically and you feel comfortable without a manual intervention process. Now, where do you start in Zero Trust? So I created a thing called the Zero Trust Learning Curve, and I created it for the US military while I was sitting in the Pentagon based upon a workshop that I was doing. And we look at the sensitivity or criticality of the protect surface over the time on the Zero Trust journey. And this creates a learning curve where we look at everything on a protect surface basis. So the first ones we do are learning protect surfaces. So early on in the process, we take a low sensitivity resource, and now this is our learning protect surface. You're learning how to do it. And if you screw up, it's no harm, no foul. You know, we'll start over again because it didn't matter. This stuff doesn't matter. It's have so small of sensitivity. And this is how you should start, because then you don't have to be afraid of it, right? And once you've done that, then you can focus on a little bit more sensitive information. These are called practice protect surfaces. You get to Zero Trust the same way you get to Carnegie Hall. You practice, practice, practice. And after that, you're going to focus on what are known as your high value assets, your crown jewels, keys to the kingdom. Those are the things that you really, we start with typically, or we want to start with logically. And I used to do that. And then I found out that most people didn't know how those worked. Now, using Illumio technology, I can do this more easily because I have the flow mapping capability, so I can see the protect surface and I can see how it works. So my chances of breaking it are much, much smaller. But before this, when I had to do all that manually, there were so many variables that we could screw up. And then after that, we're going to move it, you know, we're going to look at other things and take some of our legacy stuff, maybe move it in. And we're going to decide that some of these things, maybe these tertiary things, aren't important enough to go into a Zero Trust environment. There's a lot of things that you have that don't have enough sensitivity, criticality, or value to protect in a Zero Trust manner. A friend of mine likes to quote Frederick the Great, who once said, "He who tries to protect everything protects nothing." You don't do Zero Trust all at once, and you don't do it for everything. You do it for individual protect surfaces based upon their sensitivity or criticality, and you do it one protect surface at a time. So Zero Trust is the world's only cybersecurity strategy. This is an image of Representative Jason Chaffetz. He was the chairman of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee of the United States House of Representatives back during the OPM data breach, the Office of Personnel Management. And his committee did a big investigation on that data breach, where they came out and recommended that Zero Trust be adopted by the entire federal government. That started the path down towards the executive order. But he also wrote a bylined article called Adopting a Zero Trust Cyber Model in Government. This had never happened before, where a sitting member of Congress was talking about a cybersecurity idea. And he said this: zero trust would have profoundly limited the attacker's ability to move within OPM's network and access such sensitive data. Now, Chairman Chaffetz, I've never met him. I met the number 2 person in that committee, Will Hurd, but I did meet with his entire staff, who did the investigation and probably wrote this article, because that's how it works, right? So you spend time meeting with the staffs, and got that sense that even though he didn't understand the technology, he understood the strategy. And this is why zero trust is a strategy. I can talk to the CEO of a company, and sometimes it will resonate more with them than somebody who's a network or security engineer who's been, inculcated into the old way of doing things and have trouble moving into this 21st century methodology. So that's my story. I want to thank you for your time today. And I'm going to be around for a while for some questions and answers, and well, hopefully answers, but at least the question part of it. And I really thank you for your time today.
Yes. So to our attendees, and thank you so much, John, that was very informative. So we have a question text box. If anyone has any questions for John, we would love to have you speak up or use the chat box. All right. No questions so far, John.
That's okay. But
Yeah.
I think people have to marinate on some of these things because it's so different than what they're used to, right?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we did that we thought would be great is some polling for our audience. So here's the first question. If you could answer on your side, we'd greatly appreciate it. How familiar are you with zero trust as a cybersecurity strategy?
Hopefully the answer is more familiar now than I was before.
Exactly. Well, I will respond there. So let's go to the next question. What is the biggest challenge your organization faces in adopting zero trust? And hopefully everyone sees that on your side. Complexity of implementation is a big answer there.
And hopefully we just answered that's not a problem, because there's 5 things you need to know. And so we'll reinforce that over and over again. Those 5 things make it totally not complex. It really is simple. As one person told me, we argued about zero trust for more time than it took us to implement the first one.
So what would your recommendation be, John, to start that implementation for the folks who say the complexity is very difficult?
Well, you need to figure out a learning protect surface, right? And then go through that 5-step methodology once, twice, and keep doing it. And you do it iterative. And when you use Illumio, when you do a POC, and I mean, this is just informational, right? I'm not trying to sell you, but when you do a POC, that POC that you do is actually your first learning protect surface. So you've started the process, and you just do that over and over and over and over again.
Great. Next question. We'd love to get some feedback from you. So how would you rate today's webinar?
I feel like an Uber driver. Give me 5 stars, please. Come on. Give you a little time to answer this.
All right, let's see. So John, you got great reviews, excellent and good. So thank you.
Excellent. My Uber career is still going. I'm happy.
Yes.
So thank you.
So in wrapping up here, folks, I wanted to make sure that I shared my contact information with the Blue Cross Blue Shield plans. At the beginning of the call, I did introduce myself as Colleen Causey. I'm the National Account Manager that manages the ANM agreement with the group purchasing organization. So if you were interested in what we had to present here today, in particular about Illumio or any other products that you have an interest in, here is my contact information, and I would encourage you to reach out to me. And once again, thank you so much for your time on this afternoon's call. We greatly appreciate it.